Welcome to the second in a series of videos on our Meniscus Analytics platform where we're using it for IoT type applications. So in the first video we created a set of, we created some templates which included a raw meter and a consumption meter. So those were our base items that we're creating in the template. And then we applied those templates and we created some entities, and we actually created up 3,000 in the first video, but I've just cut it down to just the initial 5 so that we can understand it a little bit more depth. So what I'm going to do very briefly is to look into each one of these, into the items, and these are the entities that have been created in each item, and just give you a bit of background as to what each the key bits of this client application are. Now this is our application that is used for configuration of the data. It has some visualization in this right hand pane, but it is not a visualization. It's not meant to be a dashboard. It's purely there for visualization of data during the configuration stage. So if you think of it as a configuration tool, remember everything in this in map has a API call, so you can pull all the data directly into your own applications. So on the raw data we can see that this is it's a raw data item. It holds all the data for the particular raw data, and we're going to load some data in a minute. This here is a meter alias, so this effectively is the alias in which you're going to load the data set, and we'll look at that data set in a minute. But it's your unique identifier that defines which set of data is going to be loaded in here. And then we've got some issues on display start times and end times and units and things. So the raw data is fairly straightforward. The consumption is a little bit more detailed to that. So here we're just setting up the name of the meter, so we just call it consumption meter. In this field we actually have, you can start to see the whole path name. So this path name becomes important when you're using the API. So everything follows a RESTful API type configuration, so it follows this path and it uses the path a lot. It's automatically map has already identified that the raw data is a raw data set, so it's automatically populated this with the raw data set. So it's saying you get its source data from this item, and you can start to use these paths for other items if you want to start using much more complex data and pull data from other areas of map. So these last calculated and modified fields tell you when the data was last calculated, gives you a calculation duration, and then these are some of the fields that we can change. So we've set this in the template as a 30-minute meter item, so it's processing data at 30 minutes. It's using an incrementing data set as well, and we'll see the impact of that data in a minute. So the raw data that we're going to load is effectively, it's a text file, so it uses our standard base format of data. So it has the unique identifier, so this is the meter alias, has a date and time, and then a value. And you can see that if you can see this data, it's actually cumulative. So this is a counting type meter, so it increases, each value increases and increases. So we've just got about a month and a half of data, so I think we've got 14,000 rows of data, and that's for each of the 5 entities that we've created. So what I'm just going to do, we load this using a secure FTP application, so we don't load it through this interface. So I'm just going to load that in at the moment. So I'm just processing that data as we speak. So that now has been processed. So what we should start to see, and we've got on this particular item straight away, you can see that this is the raw data that's been processed. So this is the underlying raw data. And what map is doing now is it's actually it'll be processing the half-hour data. Now this is a development server, so it's quite a bit slower than our main production servers, but it gives you the idea of what's happening. So we have the 5 meters. Each one of those you can go into, we can look at the raw data, and as I say, so then the consumption data is being processed as we speak. So if I just go back into the first one, so it's doing its thing at the moment. So as we say, if we wanted to, we can change the calculation intervals, you can change the incrementing data types, and so here we have the actual calculated data that we saw. So if I go into any of those entities, effectively they've all now got consumption data. So this is the sort of very simple visualization. You can change in the UI what the visualization is for. So if I look for, we are looking for the, let's say the 10th of the 9th, 10th of the 9th, 2007, and you want to go and look up to the 12th of the 9th. So you can get so this is just using as a very simple visualization, and as I say, if you want to, you can change the aggregation intervals. So we could change this now we could put it back to an hour. Map has updated that. So what it's now going to do, if I refresh this, we should see that this last calculated and last modified values have now gone back to a default setting of 0000, and that effectively means that the data is now being calculated. So map is just reprocessing that data as we speak. It actually gives you the calculation times here. So the last set was done in just under not a fifth, it's a 500th of a second. So that just gives you some ideas, and the rest of the time it's just loading the data and reprocessing, etc., etc. So that's now being calculated. So we're now recalculated that into hourly increments, and if I just want to see all the data again, I can just delete this set down here. And that's now my hourly data for the full data set. So hopefully that gives you an idea of some of the capabilities of loading raw data and processing it into consumption data, and in the next videos we're going to be adding some more calculation functionality. Thanks so much indeed for listening. Bye.